Yeah, yeah, I did, So one day I got my pre-existing conditions. Got some good news. Found out that was like 25% British and Scottish. I'm like, okay. And they told me the town, like just outside of Edinburgh. I'm like, I didn't know this. How can you get that down to that level of detail?
That's right, probably.
Yeah. So.
What about Everton?
What's that?
What about Everton?
Who's that?
What about Everton?
Oh, my dad? Oh, no, they don't break it down like that.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Now, they'll tell you some things like my mom, through the Dye family, we are direct descendants of Ramses III.
Oh, no kidding.
I couldn't believe it. And then they said, through my father's side, we are related to Mandela.
Not the Pharaoh Ramses III of Egypt.
The same haplogroup.
Right.
It's just a general genetic code.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got the same, same one. And that's on my father's side. On my mother's side, we're related to Nelson Mandela. So we are Mandela's cousins, man. That was my 55th birthday. I got to just going out there and putting stuff on genealogy. Look at yourself.
Looking good, man. Looking good.
I gotta find this out. Still 18. Okay. I was stuck in 21 for a long time.
That's great.
Yeah, I want to get over there. I want to check it out. I've been doing a whole bunch of history because it turns out that the homies, the EU, have been kind of messed with for the longest time.
Right.
And they had that Biafran Civil War in Nigeria, that's where it was like Muslim against Christian, and they got just decimated. So our people have been pretty much. Well, some still there.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
With the Irish.
Well, the Irish,
They actually had, they were actually property owners. So they were up there a little bit. That's when they started to take a second look.
oh,
Check their wood up.
so where did that come from? I mean, that came from
My grandmother. My grandmother actually born there.
full blown Irish. Oh, wow.
Yeah, her mother, to see her mother.
Was this World War II? After that? Okay. So, man, have you ever thought about going over there?
I've been there twice, but I've been there twice, but I was working.
You didn't go there for family, right? Okay. You didn't have no time to travel.
I was part of the protection. That's what I saw.
I don't think so.
Get way too far.
From the community?
Oh, yes, okay.
Somebody do too.
From Dr. Ellen Gonzalez? Yeah, I have her. Like the 2 minutes or whatever. Okay, so she's one of the communities that talk because I can read it when I hear your card. Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
What is that? Something like a, they call it AIC, what they have name, nickname. Something in chat. Yes, right. Okay.
Yes, that's right. It's a sack. That's what they call it.
And a short program with the.
Oh, gotcha. see.
I understand some of the acronyms, I knew it was something like that, and I was like,
It's
oh
like, you know,
man, you kept that, you kept that.
You should just say on the back, there's some on the back.
So we want to ask.
Even my mom.
You should know either.
Okay, okay.
That's
Let me
all.
start.
My mom did that because
I have one.
Right. Every village got a prince, 5 feet away is another village.
that was the first thing he was running on me.
Okay, okay, we're wealthy, I know everyone there is, yeah.
Not that, you know, he was me, you know. It was my decision.
Okay.
All they do is take.
Okay, that's cute.
Wow, okay. So human trafficking and all that. His family members? It's like Albanians or something, for goodness sake.
If they were stressed, that was their full-on.
Was it a home base? Yeah. Montreal?
The other professions, their dates, using other things.
They were all around.
Yeah, including the fact that I was shipping stuff to Colorado. And stuff like that. What is the person's name?
No.
Did you put
So,
Michelle in there?
my friend business, he had all
Did you talk to Michelle?
Yeah.
Did she come?
longer knowledge or anything.
She was supposed to be in this, but she said.
Okay, is that the closest places now? Where am I putting it in?
After the godson.
They gathered all of them. It was like preparation. What happened? It's failed. It was like a Sopranos. That's pretty much what it was.
Everyone, were they East or were they sloppy? I mean, was it difficult to get them, or were they just so poorly, you know, trying to hide their deeds? That it was like, you know, like,
Pride got.
right, okay.
So,
It's sort of like that Prince. Oh, the Prince, okay. Yeah. No, Prince, yeah. Yeah, the country and the king. Steve Jeffrey of,
This reward was so more work involved. I thought it was going.
yeah, okay. Oh. Okay. Was it years of service or age?
His age.
57. That sounds pretty sweet, man. That's
Themselves wanting.
yeah, lack of experience. Yeah, you need to get rid of all the experience. That's what I'm gonna do.
This one, oh, and that's the technology. You know, cyberpunk.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Okay. So, but you protection details? I mean, you gotta do everything.
Well, you gotta do everything.
You gotta do everything.
At some point, until you're all done.
So you do all this fancy stuff.
How you doing? And it comes through.
Has to be analyzed. Has to be. I mean, that's how they got the.
That's it.
They did not give it. Let you know early. And that was from, that was forensic. had the super athlete, so, yeah. Yeah, no, you keep reading. Well, they visit me with me on a trip. Mhm. Walking real brisk. She stopped about 5 minutes ago. As soon as that echo comes across, there's the certain. Yeah, I mean, I'm confused. It's natural. It's yeah, it will. It's natural plant. Oh, sorry. It's not man-made, not manufactured. It comes out. It doesn't taste as sweet as sugar, but you get a little bit of that sweetness. Enough for me in my coffee. That's where I get all my sugar. But no, straight out black. That'd be good, man. They left me on that thing. You left me on that an hour, 10 minutes ago. You didn't stop me. You got what you need after about 20 minutes. Didn't from the accident?
Are you the minister?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I get mistaken that way all the time.
Say no. So he took me in there and walked up here. And I was like, look at the take me back in on the but they had actual people. So he did that. One jog, and I'm in the scum walking around. I'm like, okay, I'm going. Starts well, you know, you got that face mask on with the respirator and all that. It's like, okay. Yeah, the whole thing. Yeah, the whole thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm back. It's, you know, when they did that, people like, it's in the park. So I'm looking at this one.
saw the email on here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I haven't talked to you. I flew in this morning, so I was hoping that she would come. Yes, I am too. Always a pleasure. Yeah, I saw you. Thank you. They took me right next to her.
I know,
Thank you. I want to thank Hakama. That's the group that just performed that wonderful song. And we want to thank the community drummers and dancers led by Mama Shashu, Mama Kahemba. And on the djembe, we had Brother Sawande Keita. My name is Malik Yakini. I'm a lifelong friend of Dr. Osei Nkele Keith Dye, and very proud to be officiating this ceremony, his homegoing ceremony and celebration of his life. We'd like to have Michael Fleming come up to the mic and do the Lord's Prayer.
Good afternoon. At the request of Mrs. Dye, I will read for you the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
Thank you, Brother Fleming. We next like to have come up Jamila Humphrey, Sister Jamila Humphrey, who knew Dr. Dye, I think, since about 1973, and we'll talk a bit about that later. But please give a warm welcome to our Sister Jamila.
I'm vertically challenged, so I have to move the mic. From Oakland Community College Department of History, we are deeply sorry for your loss. Please know that the entire department has been thinking of him and discussing the positive impact he had on the department in Oakland. May the joys you knew and the times you shared help comfort you at this sad time. My prayers are with you. Love, Minnie. Blessed are those that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Matthew 5:4. Praying for you during this difficult time. May God's peace surround you in your season of grief. The Fields family and the neighbors and friends on the block. And I think you know where the block is. From Deacon Mary E. McKissick. Dear Mrs. Dye and family, Keith Dye affectionately called Osei was my son, Derek McKissick's loyal best friend from the time they joined the Pan-African Congress through high school days and remained lifelong friends. In fact, Lena, Darren's daughter, became Osei's goddaughter. Thanks to Osei for the love and support that he and your family gave to Darren and our family for many years. Osei and Darren are both loved writing, teaching, speaking, and researching our African American heritage. They understood the importance of having identity, purpose, and direction in life. Both loved our youth and were teachers. Osei history, Darren science. Osei's and Darren's teaching, and Darren is also known as Olu. Teaching lessons were beneficial and are still needed in our community for all youth. We love you, Osei. God loves you best. Your teaching, writing, and speaking will surely be missed. May God continue to bless you and your family. Love, Deacon Mary E. McKissick. From Dr. Ellen Judge Gonzalez. Keith was a wonderful colleague and friend to me for many years on the U of M Dearborn campus. When Keith first came to our campus, my office was in the dean's suite, and his office was nearby. We had regular chats in the second floor hallway about the university, students, life, and home. Keith always had a warm smile for everyone and was a great listener. I got to know Keith even better when he joined the SOAR Advisory Board in 2018. For those of you who do not know me, I direct a special academic program on our campus called SOAR. SOAR provides support, opportunities, advocacy, and resources for returning adult learners with financial need. SOAR students range in age from 25 to 77. Most SOAR students are the first in their families to attend college, and many are working parents who would find it difficult to complete their degree without the scholarship support SOAR offers. I asked Keith to serve on our advisory board after several years of hearing SOAR students talk about him so positively. He took the time to meet with them, to explain assignments in greater detail, to talk history with them one-on-one, to point out where they needed to improve and direct them to resources that could help. But what made Keith stand out in my mind was that he always went the extra mile, always gave more than what was required to the students. He listened to their fears and concerns about not making it, not being good enough, not belonging, and then he patiently and consistently built them up, assuring them that they could and would make it. Don't get me wrong, Keith was a realist, and students had to work hard for their grades in his classes, but he truly believed that with the right resources and strategies, and maybe a little extra time, many students could succeed. The students trusted him. He seemed to have a special place in his heart for returning adult students, and I learned why when Keith and I went out to lunch so that he could learn more about SOAR before committing to be a board member. We had a nearly 3-hour lunch at Don Tacos on Michigan Avenue, if anybody knows where Don Tacos is. When I learned that Keith was like our SOAR students, a returning adult learner when he began his PhD program, earning his doctorate after age 50. He believed that if he could do it, then any student could. He was so generous of spirit, such a good storyteller, and such an engaged listener. I learned all about his journalism career, the newspaper he started, his scholarly interest, and the reasons behind them, and his belief in the importance of connection and community. By the end of our lunch, I knew I had gained a friend as well as a valued colleague to serve on our advisory board. Keith was an active board member, offering timely advice, suggestions for improving our programming. He showed up for every event in person at first and then virtually throughout the pandemic. He was committed to our students and truly cared. It's telling that at the end of the year, SOAR Student Recognition Celebration, when graduating seniors have an opportunity to speak about their experience at the university, there would always be several students who would mention Dr. Dye and the influence he had on their academic journey. When interviewed in 2021 by SOAR Public Relations intern Nadia Bryant, Keith was asked why he chose to become more involved in SOAR, and his response says a lot about who he was and what he valued. He said, "It's important to make SOAR students believe in themselves, to really feel confident, to know that they have SOAR to assist them and that they can actually do well. It's not a handout. It's getting them to realize that they are full human beings, just like everyone else, and that they can be successful. That's the one thing I really want to impart when I meet with them. I will be forever grateful for the time we had with Keith and the impact he had on his students and the university. On behalf of SOAR Advisory Board and our students, I offer our sincere condolences to the family and loved ones. Do we have any SOAR members, people in the program here? Okay. And Dr. Dye's colleagues, would you please stand? Any students? Colleagues and students, please stand. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
To read the obituary, we'd like to have one of Detroit's best poets and writers, Aurora Harris, come forward.
Greetings, everyone. I don't speak Hausa, and I can't get the click right in my throat to pronounce his last name. So this is Sister Ngozi Doris, as some of you may know through the email. She will pronounce his last name. So this is for Dr. Keith Anthony Dye.
Oh, saying Pele.
Thank you. Dr. Keith Anthony Dye was born in Detroit, Michigan, to Charles M. Dye and Valeria Dye on July 19, 1955. He is remembered by many as being a kind and giving person with a good sense of humor. He was full of jokes, especially when the punchline included Jack Daniels or being a stepper. He loved to travel and had a beautiful singing voice. He was dedicated to family, community, and his work as an educator and devoted caregiver to his mother. One of her fondest memories was that he always said, "Be positive all the time." Keith attended Cooley High School, where he was recruited from junior high school to play basketball. He enjoyed playing basketball, but his passion was history, for which he developed at a young age, was stronger. He was extremely committed to educating the Black community about their history as well as analyzing their history. This laid the foundation for his life work. He was one of the founders of the Black History Association and the African American Study Club at Cooley High School. He had a group of his friends recruit other Black study clubs in other Detroit high schools to join the Black Student United Front, a citywide organization. He was also a member of the Congress of African People in the early 1970s. After graduating from Cooley High in 1974, Keith attended the University of Detroit and earned his Bachelor of Arts degree in Communications. By 1975, Keith was a member of the Pan-African Congress, USA. He was active in the National Black Political Assembly, the National Black Independent Political Party, and the National Black United Front. In 1980, he was a co-founder of the annual September is Black Reading Month to promote the reading of books and magazines by authors of African and African American descent. During college, Keith worked as an audiovisual tech at U of D Mercy. This thrusted him into a position at WTVS Channel 56 as a production assistant. He also worked at Operation Get Down as a publicist as well as a GED and youth counselor. Because of his hard work and dedication, he was asked to work in the emergency service department with NIA House Food and the homeless program, serving more than 1,500 persons in need of services per month. Keith used his knowledge to teach other people by publishing news and entertainment paper called City View that was a successful biweekly newspaper. It was so successful that he partnered with the Detroit Metro Times to publish Stepping Out. While continuing his quest for love of history, he earned a master's degree at the University of Detroit Mercy. He taught himself to speak and read the West African language Hausa to fulfill his requirement for his PhD at the University of Toledo. Keith taught at several institutions: the University of Toledo, University of Detroit Mercy, Wayne State University, Oakland University, and the University of Michigan Dearborn. His teaching and research included American history, African American history, African history, and Caribbean history. He was recruited and hired by the University of Detroit, he was recruited and hired at the University of Michigan Dearborn as a professor of African and African American studies and history. He was recently promoted to associate professor with tenure on May 19, 2022. According to his promotion recommendation letter, Dr. Dye was rated excellent in teaching, service, and research. Some of his achievements were: he attends to twice the normal service obligations due to his dual appointment. Within the college, he has served on the Curriculum Committee, the Student Retention and Success Committee, the Academic Integrity Board, and most recently as parliamentarian for the Castle Executive Committee. At the university level, he helped assist non-traditional students through his service on the advisory board of SOAR, as well as through his annual contributions to the Black Celebratory and the Soul of Success Retreat. His service to the broader academic and metropolitan communities is also noteworthy. He has contributed book reviews to a series of distinguished academic journals, while also reviewing manuscripts for Wayne State University, where he currently serves on that press's Great Lakes Advisory Board. Within the Detroit metropolitan community, he has offered lectures as well as being interviewed for various media programs on subjects ranging from African American reparations to the Black Lives Matter movement. He was also recently appointed to the City of Detroit Historic Designation Advisory Board. Keith's significant scholarly work includes The Diplomacy of Theodore Brown and the Niagara-Biafra Civil War, Negotiating a Destiny by New York Peter Lang Press 2020, the U.S. Diplomacy and the American Negro Leadership Conference for Africa, Retreat and Engagement on Pre-Civil War Nigeria, the International Journal of African Historical Studies, Volume 53, 1, 2020, pages 195 to 11, and the debate on reparations before the debate on reparations at the National Black Economic Development Conference in Detroit, 1969. The Michigan Historical Review, Volume 46-2, Fall 2020, pages 175 to 186. Keith was a member of numerous professional organizations: American Historical Association, Organization of American Historians, Society for Historians of American Foreign Relations, and the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. Keith has joined the ancestors. His memory comes with his parents, Valeria W. Dye and Charles M. Dye, aunt, Laura K. Cartwright, brother, Charles Mark Dye, godfather, Shaka Melva Payne Natambu, two godsons, Sekou Osei Payne and Marcel Allen, goddaughter Leah McKissick, several cousins, nieces, nephews, close friends, colleagues, former colleagues, associates, and a special friend. Preceding him are sisters Deborah W. Dye and Carol A. Dye, and brother Kentis D. Dye. Although Keith is physically gone, his spirit to live, purpose, and memory will always be with us as we celebrate his life. His mother said, Mama will always love you. I miss you already. If I had a lifetime wish, a dream that will come true, I pray with all my heart for yesterday and you. 1,000 words can't bring you back. I know, because I tried, and neither will a million tears. I know because I've cried. You've left behind a broken heart and happy memories too. But I never wanted memories. I only wanted you. Love, Mom.
Thank you, Sister Aurora. We're going to have public comments. We want to ask people to keep them to 2 minutes. And there's several people who have been designated to speak first. And I'm going to ask those people to line up on this side so that you're kind of in the queue and ready to go, starting with Brother Shaka and Tambu. And then after Shaka, if either of his sons are here, Sister Marcella Allen, if you're here, please line up. Dr. Georgina Hickney, if you're here, please line up on this side. Dr. Deborah Smith Pollard. And then after those designated folks speak, we'll open it up for others in the community who would like to make brief remarks. Brother Shaka Nantambu, Melvin Payne.
Good afternoon. Straight out of Northern Michigan University. My first teaching position, Thomason Cooley High. American history, African American history, econ, psychology, sociology, you named it. I met Key and Alan, who was Keith's running buddy. First duty, lunchroom. Now, if you were a teacher, the last thing that you wanted to have was lunchroom duty. Now, here I am, 5'4", up comes the basketball team. I'm on duty. So when they started to go through, I just stepped in front of them and said, wait. They looked at me and like, who are you? I'm a teacher. Yeah, right, we never saw you before. Well, you're looking at me now. Don't step further. So Osei said, are you really a teacher? I said, yeah, and by the way, I'll see you in class. So from that point on, Osei was not only a student, son, brother, friend. I have been in contact with Osei ever since he was in the 10th grade. I didn't know how ill he was until a few weeks ago. And the last time I talked with him, it was an interesting conversation. He always wanted me to, Mr. Nantambu, when you gonna get your PhD? Never. He said, what? I don't want it. He said, but you know, you have so much. I don't want it, Osei. I gave Osei his name, Osei, maker of the great. He and a group of students at Cooley High, plus Malik sitting here, were some of the most dynamic readers to be young people. They were activists. They were in student organizations. They were organizing students. Keith was on a mission. And one of the things that he thanked me for a long time ago was instilling in him the fire to become a history teacher. I was one of those teachers, academic excellence. Don't come into my room talking about you can't do nothing. Academic excellence. That's what I expect of you. I would put can't on the board. I don't want to hear it. I can't do it. Second word, think. I want you to think for yourself. I will teach you how to challenge, to research, to develop your research skills so you can challenge anybody that comes up against you, because if you have not done your research, you start using opinions, you have already lost the argument. And we used to go at it sometimes. I mean, you know, we debated W.E.B. Du Bois versus Booker T. That whole, and that Cap, those organizations that were Marxist-Leninists versus the Pan-Africanists, well, back in those days, it was something to see, something to hear, and those young people had it. I am so proud to be a part of Dr. Keith Anthony Dye. He was one of the shining pupils that I've had. My son, my youngest son, Sekou, is his godson. I don't get that. It's his godson. And unfortunately, he couldn't be here, but he treated not only his godson like a godson, but my other two sons, Kwame and Kofi. So it has truly been an honor, and I thank God for making him a part of my life and giving me the opportunity to be a teacher in his life. And I hope those of you who are teachers of Osei, that you will pass on his learning desire for history, because Keith's mission was to educate our people in their history, because we are still lost. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Professor Deborah Smith Pollard from the University of Michigan, Dearborn. And though all of our colleagues have already stood, if the ones from AAAS could just stand briefly. So I'm here to represent them. Thank you. To the family members, especially his mother, to the close friends and academic colleagues of Professor Keith Dye, I offer my deepest condolences. I am grateful to bring you a brief description of what he meant to African and African American Studies program. The professor who had the idea to start AAAS, Dr. Joe Lunn, has retired a few months ago, but wanted to share these words. Keith was a cornerstone of AAAS. He was beloved by students whom he taught to see the world in new ways, a pioneering scholar who shed important light on the ongoing interaction between African Americans and Africans in the modern world, and a friend and colleague whose gentle manner and keen insights about life and work enriched us all. His presence, unfailing good humor, and generosity of spirit are deeply missed by everyone who knew him. U of M Dearborn alumna Arlisa Robinson, who is completing her master's at Columbia University, sent these words. He held us to high standards in and out of the classroom. I was and am a better student because of Professor Keith Dye. Now, my brief description is that the first person who had AAAS as part of his U of M Dearborn title was a champion of doing things uniquely, from how he responded to students to selecting the publisher for his last book, which helped him make it from assistant to associate professor with tenure. I never heard him in his distinct voice recite the words from Coming to America, whatever you like, whatever you want. He respected the opinion of others, but he always valued his own. And this is something he brought to AAAS meetings, discussions, and events, and we will always miss. As for the Detroit class that he taught many, but this was a big one because it always had a wait list of students. The historian, journalist, activist, and entrepreneur not only shared academic publications about our city, but his own knowledge of the many hidden gems within it. I was director of AAAS when he came in, and while he thought it hilarious to call me boss whenever he saw me, I call it an honor to have worked with someone who brought insight, passion, and joy to our program. He will be sorely missed. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I don't know if I have much to add after that. My name is Georgina Hickey, and I'm the chair of the Social Sciences Department, which houses our history program. And Keith Dye was, of course, a treasured colleague in that program as well. I'm sure he came mostly to serve the African American Studies program. It was our great honor to host a part of his line in history, because as you have all heard, he was quite passionate about teaching that. My deepest condolences to his family and his friends. One of the amazing things about being here is hearing how much we all knew the same man. Even those of you who knew him much longer than us. He came to us relatively recently as what we would call a junior professor, but he wasn't particularly junior by the time he got to us. We got the advantage of someone who brought a whole lifetime of wonderful experiences and a deep commitment to the students, and just a real pleasure to work with. We'd be rolling out all these things that had to happen, and his response was, I'll give that a try, I'll give that a stab. But I did get to work really closely with him this last year, moving him through the tenure process that allowed him to be promoted from assistant to associate. And he always just blew me away with his energy, because part of his packet included the projects he was going to do, not just the ones he'd done, but all the things he was going to do. And I kept coming to him and going, Keith, this list is crazy. You have 6 different books you're working on. He's like, yeah, they're almost done. I also got to know him through his students. I'm a history professor as well, so we shared a lot of students, so I hear what they have to say. And he had a real talent for meeting people where they were and asking them, what's your story? And then using that to nudge them, sometimes maybe even push them to new places. And I was always amazed at how high his expectations were, how hard he made those students get outside of their comfort zone, and how much they trusted him on that journey and they valued having gone on that journey with him. He will be deeply missed.
Hi, how are you? I'm Sharon Elizabeth Sexton, and I knew Keith in a different way. I've known him, I guess, since junior high. And it's interesting because all the people I knew in junior high and high school, because I went to 2 junior highs, went to Post Junior High and Beaubien Junior High and Cass Tech, and we seem to have spawned a wonderful generation of people who have done so much for Detroit. And Keith was one of them. Like, I'm also a historian, and I didn't know him, like, we never dated or anything like that, but we'd always see each other at places, and we were always in the fights together. And to me, he was kind of a little shy with a little bit of a stutter, but he was a real warrior. That if you had to depend on somebody to do something for Black history in the city or in the state, you knew that he was the one to go to, and he would be there. He would be at a protest, he would be whatever. And he was not the person who, if you went to one of these rallies, he wouldn't be the one necessarily at the mic. He'd be the one in the back letting people in, explaining what had been happening that they missed out on, or just trying to break it down to them. So when I heard the other day that he had passed, it was like, he's always been here. So it's like, first it was, oh no, that's a mistake. It must be somebody else. And then it's like, wow, what are we going to do without him? And then too, he was the kind of person who was just so genuine. And I wasn't mad at him that he was still at home living with his mom. That's beautiful, And, I guess we were quirky in the same kind of quirks. So I'll definitely miss him. And, we have to carry on to fight for him. So anyhow, that's basically it. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mom, for raising such a wonderful guy.
Are there others in the community here who would like to make remarks on Dr. Dye? Please come forward. And again, we want you to keep them to no more than 2 minutes. And if there are others who like to make those remarks, please kind of stage yourself here. And so we got, looks like 2 other people, then we'll move on. Come on. 3 other people.
My name is Douglas Broomfield. I'm from the, from the neighborhood. We grew up together back in the, 60s. We were in Black History at Cooley High. Back in the day, we used to go to concerts, and Miss Dye would take her time out to give us a ride downtown to the Motown Reviews, Copa Hall at that time, and we really appreciate that. We thought we were like big time, but we always took the bus back because it was late at night. She didn't like that. Another short thing too, when they had a television program, PBS was called Black Journal. American Black Journal. Right, thank you. I remember Keith and I was always talk about it. So he would call me on the phone and say, hey, guess who's going to be on Black Journal? So we'll watch it and we'll speak on it the next day in school. We used to walk to school together, play at the park, baseball and stuff like that. And I'm so proud of my brother that he has touched so many people. And we were always taught, share your knowledge. You'll never forget where you come from. And that was basically in our blood and naturally in our blood. So that's what we used to do. Thank you very much for your time.
I'm also from the neighborhood, and I got a little bit different perspective on Keith Dye because I knew him before academia. I knew him in elementary school. Keith was a great artist. In fact, he used to draw comic books and sell them to us. And I mean superhero comic books with the muscles and the whole shot, which was fabulous. Somebody had mentioned that he had a great singing voice. He did, and his group was the Temptations. Well, all our group was the Temptation. Doug, yep, they had a little organization in the Detroit Police Department known as the Big Four back then. And if you were on the corner singing the Temptations, they come by and they would roll down the back window. It'd be 4 police officers, 3 detectives, and a uniformed officer driving. They would kick the uniformed officer out. Gonna come back around the block, this concert's got to be over. So we have to take it to the basement. Keith and his brother Ken were the ones that organized all the softball and football games where we played other blocks. Doug lived in Ohio, but he had to play on the Wisconsin team because nobody else was on his block. So he had to play over there with us. And fabulous guy, a fabulous brother. He introduced all of us to quote unquote radicalism back at the time, but it was just self-pride. It was self-pride. I was reading the obituary, and I thought I was reading his FBI file. a lot of details in there. But if you knew Keith, he'd always stand by you. If you didn't know him and you were in the community, he was already standing by you. He was our brother. He was our friend. And we're going to miss him.
I'm Jamila Humphrey. I met Keith when we were in high school. I was a student leader at my high school, Southeastern, and these 3 guys, Osei, Olu, and Kwame, came to ask us if we would join this citywide group. And during the 1974 student teacher, when they went out on strike, our citywide student group was able to organize some free schools around the city of Detroit so that we could keep our education going. But Osei and I, we had one of those conversations that if you go before me, what do you want people to tell you, that kind of thing. And he said that he wanted people to know that he was a serious African. That a lot of our conversations were that I'm done. You may have heard him say that masses are asses. I'm done with this. And he was serious. In our youth, he pulled together a group to try to enact Chancellor Williams' plan. It's at the back of his book, Destruction of Black Civilization. He was always in this new era writing, and we talked about some of the projects that he was writing about. And he was working on something that I felt was going to be a paradigm shift in the way that we looked at our relationship between African Americans and Africans and the liberation movement. But I will miss my brother. We had some really good times in high school. African
Liberation Day, all of the protests, everything, he was always there. And he was a committed son to his mom, and he really loved her. He really loved her, and he made sure that she was going to be taken care of. And Ngozi, where are you? Okay. And Kim, they have been taking care of Miss Di, and he was really appreciative of you all doing everything you did, because they treat her like family, which she is, because they grew up down the street. And he was always talking about what a great job that they were doing, even though if you knew him, he was still fussing about stuff. But he really did appreciate you all, and thank you so much. And thank you, Miss Di, for having a son named Keith.
Greetings and salutations. About 2 weeks ago, I attended a historic tour, and I was taken to the Roberts River Walk downtown, and there are 3 plaques, and we spent about 50 to 60 minutes reading those plaques and dissecting those plaques, and it was written by Dr. Keith Anthony Di. I never had the opportunity to meet him, didn't know he existed. And full circle, 2 weeks later, I have the honor and privilege of dancing for him and sending him off to be an ancestor. And so I just wanted to share that he is a living legacy for younger generations to continue to learn and understand our history. And I am so grateful to be here and to have witnessed his history and to carry it on for everyone else who continues to come to the city, to come here to learn about Michigan's history through him. So thank you.
I'm going to give a student's perspective. My name is Mary Ann Moran. My husband is a professor at Oakland University, and I had the opportunity, I think about 2011, to go back to school again and take an African American history class by Dr. Di. I didn't really know him very well at that time. The first day of class, this was in the morning, there was a class of about 40, 50 students assembled in this hall, and we're waiting, and we're looking at our clock, and 10, 20 minutes go by, and so because I knew the secretaries, I got on my phone, and I called one of the secretaries, and I says, "Where's Dr. Di?" I says, "We've got a class and we're waiting." And she gets on the phone right away, and she gets a hold of him. And apparently he showed up at UAD because he was confused, because he was going to UAD, he was going to somewhere else, he was going to U of M, he was always going somewhere. So he was at the wrong place at the wrong time. So I said, "Okay, class, next week." So everybody leaves, we come back. And he was a fabulous teacher. He was so interesting and so positive and humorous. And humorous was a big thing. And this is the other humorous Keith Di story. So he's right. We've got these whiteboards, behind. He's standing there lecturing a whiteboard, and so he decides he's going to write something on the whiteboard. He grabs this black magic marker, which is on the the ledge, and he starts writing on this whiteboard with this black magic marker, and then he realizes what he's done, and so he does one of these, and he starts trying to rub off the words, and the words aren't going, and he gets this big wide-eyed look, and he goes, "Uh-oh, I'm in trouble now." But I've been in trouble before. And we just laughed, and he was a friend, and my husband and I were friends with him, and we socialized on occasion, and he is going to be sadly, sadly missed. He was a wonderful person. That's all.
We'd like to ask the Sisters of Hakama to come forward and to share a song with us. We just want to correct, that was not Hakama, that was the Sisters of Amun Ra. Thank you very much, Mama Shashu. And we're going to take just a minute as they close the casket and his mother has a chance to view him. thank Swanson Funeral Home for their excellent care of our brother. So I've been asked to do the eulogy, and I'm going to take a few liberties and kind of rename it and call it a Eula story. Many of you know our brother as Dr. Keith Dye, a respected and recently tenured academic who has conveyed his profound understanding of global black history to hundreds of students at a number of local universities. I knew him as Keith, Clyde, Homeboy, Osei, and Uncle. Let me explain. I first met Keith Dye in January 1969 when I was attending post-junior high school on Green Lawn at Midland on the west side of Detroit. A few of us who attended Halley Elementary School entered post in the 8th grade. Most of the other students in the school, including Keith Dye, had started a year earlier in the 7th grade. Keith and I ended up being in the same homeroom and developed a lifelong friendship. In 1969, he jokingly called himself Clyde, the nickname of basketball star Walt Frazier. He even sported a maxi coat and a wide brim hat like his idol. Now see, I know y'all in the SOAR program and the academics, y'all don't know about that. Oh, you know. One person knows. Keith and his buddy, our mutual classmate Marvin Allen, were outstanding basketball players. I thought I could play a little bit, but when I met them, I was like, I don't think I want to do this no more. I put my chucks away. We were fortunate to have a number of teachers at Post who stoked our burgeoning black consciousness, like Gloria Green, who was the first Miss Black America, or Miss Davis, the girls' gym teacher, who was an organizer for the Angela Davis Defense Fund and wore an afro bigger than Angela Davis's. But none were more influential on our developing minds than Ronald McCombs and Melvin Peters, who taught social studies and English respectively. Interestingly, the two of them were childhood friends who had moved from West Virginia to Detroit a few years earlier and started teaching at Post. Mr. McCombs taught us about the enslavement of blacks in the U.S. South and about Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, and others who rebelled against it. Mr. Peters taught us about black literature, both classic writers like Phyllis Wheatley, Paul Laurence Dunbar, and Langston Hughes, and the young radical black poets of the day like Nikki Giovanni, Don L. Lee, and Sonia Sanchez. Often, the two would combine their classes for a special event like a film or a guest speaker. On one such occasion in the spring of 1969, they combined their classes and played the entire LP recording of Malcolm X's speech, Message to the Grassroots, recorded in 1963 at King Solomon Baptist Church in Detroit. I think it's fair to say, at least for Osei and I and a few other classmates, that since that day, our lives have never been the same. As 13-year-old boys grappling with and imagining what black manhood meant and looked like, Minister Malcolm provided a compelling example. His uncompromisingly militant style and unapologetic love for black people captured us. His knowledge of history and world affairs challenged our growing minds. Most of us in our small circle memorized that speech word for word. You could say we had become Malcolmites, reading everything we could by or about him and seeking out recordings of his speeches. By the time we were 14, we considered ourselves to be what Malcolm X called black nationalist freedom fighters. Thirsty for more of this knowledge of self, we organized weekly after-school rap sessions at the nearby University of Detroit, where Mr. McCombs, Mr. Peters, and their friend Henry Fagan would talk to us about philosophy, culture, politics, fasting, blackness, and a number of other topics. Fagan, as we called him, had taught at Post in 1968 and had recently been appointed Dean of Student Affairs at the University of Detroit. He made that facility available to us for our weekly rap sessions every Wednesday from 4 to 6 p.m. In January 1971, I appreciate the all rights over there. I like that. I like that. This is what we do, right? It's call and response. It's interactive. Y'all can take a cue from Jamila if you want to. In 1971, Keith and I both graduated from Post. I went to Cass Tech and he went to Cooley. We lost touch for a few years but reunited in late 1974 via Kwame Kenyatta, who went on to become school board member, city council member, trusted member of the Jackson, Mississippi Mayor Chokwe Lumumba's administration. Now, I do have to tell you at this time that I met Kwame in 1974, he refused to vote. So it was interesting to many of us when we saw him go into electoral politics. I met Kwame in September 1974, living in the Pittman dormitory on the Hill at Eastern Michigan University. I was intrigued by seeing this guy who always wore a blue jean jacket with 5 or 6 buttons about freeing this or that person, and he always wore a Fidel Castro-like military hat. One day I introduced myself. Within 5 minutes, we discovered that Keith Dye was a mutual friend. Kwame had worked with Keith, Jamila Humphrey, who you heard from earlier, Karen McCowan, Oluchumbe Namtambu, Darren McKissick, and others to organize a citywide black student union in 1973. After reconnecting with Keith, I met Shaka Namtambu, who you've also heard from earlier, and you can see from his fire where Brother Osei got some of his fire. I met Brother Shaka Namtambu, one of his teachers at Cooley, who would become a mentor and major intellectual influence. I also learned by 1972 he had become a member of the Congress of African People, led by the brilliant author, poet, playwright, and institution builder, the revolutionary artist Amiri Baraka. And he had also participated in the Independent Black Political Convention in Gary, Indiana that same year. Mind you, in 1972, he was about 15, 16, something like that. By late 1974, Kwame Kenyatta had recruited myself, Osei Oluchumbe, Darren McKissick, who, by the way, I knew from elementary school, and a few other teenagers to join the Youth League of the Pan-African Congress USA. Like most young people then and now, we thought we were the blackest, most revolutionary folk who ever lived. And we secretly call ourselves the Mau Mau. Y'all laughing, we wasn't playing. We wasn't playing. By that time, Osei was well-read and could debate his positions with anyone. I just learned today how he developed that skill, right? Shaka Namtambu gave us the kind of backstory on that. Osei could debate, and he did not back down from his positions. He was like a sponge who sought out and absorbed everything he could about black nationalist, Pan-Africanist thought and African American, and African Caribbean history. He spent hours talking with and learning from Walimu Ed Vaughn in his bookstore on Dexter in Monterey, and from Kwame Atta, who owned the Charisma gift shop a few doors down. It was Kwame Atta that gave Osei his last name, Nklele. So I learned today where he got his first name from Brother Shaka, and he got his last name from Kwame Atta. In the summer of 1975, Osei, Kwame, and I ran a summer program for teenagers called Identity, Purpose, and Direction in the basement of a church on Lawton at Puritan. The main text for the summer program was the book From Plan to Planet, The Need for African Minds and Institutions by Haki Madhubuti, formerly known as Don L. Lee. Both the youth in the program and the 4 of us, who by the way were also teenagers, got paid each week through the Community Youth Services Program headed by Brother Richard Humphrey, also known as Brother Adisa. And I think I definitely saw his daughter, Hasina here. I don't know if you're still here, so throw your hands up. But we want to keep this history alive. We want to make sure the story is told correctly. A few evenings each week, we ran the 3 miles around Palmer Park and engaged in various other types of training to be ready for the revolution. That summer, we experienced tear gas for the first time when Kwame, Olu, Osei, and I joined the gathering crowd on Livernois at Finkel after a white man had killed a black man at the nearby Bob Bolton's bar. Anybody remember that? All right. Windows of several businesses were smashed, a police car was set on fire, and police began shooting tear gas into the crowd. We ran, coughing and barely able to see, but somehow, in spite of getting separated, were able to meet back up a couple blocks away on Finkel. At the end of that summer, Kwame, Olu, Osei, and I drove to Chicago to meet Haki Matabuti. Olu already knew Haki and made arrangements for us to sleep on the floor in Haki's apartment. We ate also something strange I had never eaten before. Haki's wife, Safisha, made something for us called millet. Millet? I was like, what? We drove Osei's car to, from, and around Chicago. Somehow he was the only one of us who had a car at a time that Kwame Kenyatta had not even learned how to drive. Osei was always very straightforward and a logical thinker. He had little patience for the locks, beads, incense of cultural nationalists, and he viewed astrology and numerology as mysticism that distracted us from the work of nation building. Osei loved expanding his horizons through travel. During the summers of 1976 and 1977, Osei and I drove to New York City to hang out with friends, walk the streets that Malcolm walked, and to buy books and cultural items not available in Detroit. Kwame Kenyatta accompanied us the first time. Again, it was Osei's car that made these trips possible. On the second trip, I saw firsthand Osei's already highly developed research skills as we went to the archives of the Socialist Workers' Party, scouring their records for information and photos about the times Malcolm X spoke at their forums. We also met and had the chance to sit and talk with Yusef Iman, who was a member of Amiri Baraka's Spirit House, but was also at that time a member of the East Organization and had been a member of Malcolm X's Muslim Mosque Incorporated, an organization of African American unity. One of the things Yusef Iman told us, and we were very interested at this time in who killed Malcolm X, one of the things Yusef told us is the day Malcolm was killed that he had a list in his pocket of the people who were conspiring to kill him. In addition to being an intellectual powerhouse, Osei was a friend who was always willing to help. It was Uncle, as he had taken to calling himself around that time, that, did he tell you to call him Uncle too? Or was that just me and my crew? It was Uncle, as he had taken to calling himself around that time, that drove my wife and I to the hospital for the birth of our first child in December of 1979. Osei showed similar kindness to others in his circle. He clearly demonstrated an undying, lifelong love for his mother. By honoring Osei Nklele, Dr. Keith Dye, we honor the best in ourselves. He was human, like the rest of us. He had faults and frailties. This is precisely why his life example matters. He was not a god, a prophet, or a saint. He was a man who, born in ordinary circumstances, fashioned himself into an extraordinary human being. He devoted his time to refining his character, sharpening his mind, and disciplining his body. He, like Malcolm before him, studied the tradition of black struggle, absorbed that tradition, and extended it. He devoted his life to the upliftment of black people. Here are 7 lessons that can be gleaned from the life of Osei Nklele, Dr. Keith Dye. 1, nurturing communities matter. The time taken by Ronald McCombs, Melvin Peters, Shaka Namtambu, Kwame Atta, Imani Humphrey, Ed Vaughn, Malkia Brantuo, and others nurtured the inherent genius in Osei. None of us are self-made. It mattered in Keith Dye's life that elders poured into him, and it matters now that we pour into young people so that they are nurtured and their inherent geniuses manifest. Lesson number 2, we have to have a fierce and relentless commitment to the upliftment of African people. If Dr. Keith Dye had been born 30 years earlier, he would have been called a race man. He had a fierce and relentless commitment to the upliftment of African people. Assata Shakur more recently defined the term race man in this way. Quote, "A race man or race woman is a loyal member of the black race who dedicate their life to directly contributing to the betterment of black people. Race men and race women remain consistently confrontational with the ideas, people, institutions, and or nations that threaten the well-being of black people." The third lesson we can learn from the life of Dr. Osei Nklele Keith Dye is intellectual rigor. Too many of us gravitate towards easy solutions and lazy thinking. Too many of us are willing to either believe government narratives or left conspiracy theories without doing the research and applying a critical lens of analysis. Our thinking defines our reality. If we are not well informed, misinformed, or willfully ignorant, we will not respond to the ongoing assaults against our people in an intelligent way. Lesson number 4, pay attention, especially black men, to your health and fitness. Throughout Osei's life, fitness was a recurring theme. At various times in his life, he played basketball, he ran, he swam, and he worked out in the gym. Lesson number 6, friendship and service. Number 5, friendship and service. Our lives only have meaning when we consciously live for something bigger than ourselves. When we live in service to those around us and to humanity, around us in particular, and humanity in general, our lives have more meaning. Lesson number 6, always have a sense of humor. Our seriousness about our liberation struggle should not and must not block us from being able to find humor in ourselves and those around us. Who wants a revolution where there's no music, laughter, and joy? Lesson number 7, tenacity. Osei taught me to compromise your preferences, but never your principles. Following this tenet, he continually shifted his work, whether it was providing community service, publishing a newspaper, or pursuing an academic career. He always remained guided by his principled commitment to black empowerment and the development of a national and Pan-African consciousness. Long after most of our 8th grade classmates had gone back into mainstream black life, Osei continued to champion black history and black self-determination. And finally, lesson number 8, discipline and organization. Following the example of Malcolm X, at least during the times before we all had cell phones, Osei always wore a wristwatch and always had an ink pen, which I still carry that tradition with me to this day, by the way. I always have a pen, always, always, always. And also Osei, following Malcolm X's example, was always on time, perhaps with the exception of the time he showed up at the wrong university. Osei led his life in a very organized, methodical way. He left very little to chance. He was a planner, and he functioned based on logic. By honoring Osei Nklele, Dr. Keith Dye, we honor the best in ourselves. May we continue to speak his name when we pour libations. May we continue to remember and be inspired by his good works on our collective behalf. Ashe, Ashe-o. So we want to let you know that there will be a repast at Hartford Memorial Baptist Church at 18700 James Cousins near 7 Mile. The family invites you to join there. We are going to close as we opened by having our community dancers from the Ahmed Ra in Zoma Ahmed Ra African Cultural Theater come forward and join us. Mama Shashu, thank you. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Brother Keith. We were like this.
that's right. Take care of it.
All right, good. You probably like you're under, when you're school, you're lower.
No, hey, look at you right. We're looking at you guys.
Like 10 years.
Yeah, it does. That's right.
I knew people with my age probably didn't know.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Thank you. Wheeler, I'm so happy to see you. I would love to talk to you. Please don't. I really love you. And I would love to sit and talk to you one day. I didn't even know that. Where you at in North Carolina? I know a bunch of people in the Raleigh area. Man. Okay, I don't know when I'm coming down next year.
Well, there's a farming conference that, small minority
I'm sure it won't be long to calm down. No, I had no idea. Mom, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Love and appreciate it.
I'm not sure.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for continuing the tradition.
I'm leaving on the 14th. They have like a raw food. On Liberty.
Okay. I can see them. That's how long you worked it out.
Maybe you might